Can I ask you another question before I answer? Because I don't want to infect your answer. Because you've demonstrated, or you've mentioned your initiative, your industry as a student. You know, that sense of realizing, okay, the big bad world is about to arrive. I need to do this, do that, get on a bus, knock on doors, meet people, and start to see what that landscape looks like. And so that, let's take that as read. That's something that I think nearly everybody recognizes, that the student or the graduate needs to work in that space. They need to do more than just the grades. Um, but given what you've just described about the complexities of the interactions, what people will actually be doing as a practitioner provider, and if you think about your Olympic experience and your football experience, if if you were to campaign or suggest a change to a university program that could make space for just a little bit more, what would that be? Because I'm just sensing that you've got to know your stuff.
Mm.
You've got to be able to work with other people. You've got to be able to apply your knowledge, which is a skill set in itself. But then there's the whole complexity of the work environment. And I guess not all of it can be taught.
Mm.
Some of it might have to be supervised or taught outside. What would you suggest if a university program was sort of better supporting a graduate? What would you love to see a little bit further progressed, a little bit further developed before people sort of come out of their formal education?
Again, I think really challenging question, Steve. I think for me, the example I gave earlier on is where I go with this. And I would probably take elements of the UK Sport Fast Track Practitioner program and I would sandwich those into a postgraduate MSc program. So we're taking a lot of theoretical knowledge, and like you say, as read, obviously, young practitioners, you have to have technical knowledge. You have to know to a degree how to apply that. But it's the situations like managing conflict and motivational change and motivational interviewing. You know, how you work in an interdisciplinary way. These were some of the modules that I remember from the fast track program. You know, another one was having difficult conversations. You know, and I'm sure you remember your early days as well, Steve. You know, those first conversations with coaches where you're actually having to push back. You know, you're the conduit between the coach and the athlete, and your information is landing. And it's really tricky. The first couple of times it feels really awkward, but to have a process and have a confidence in your process to be able to do that, I think is really important. So I would, in my first part is I would condense elements of this fast track program and I would put those into some MSc programs alongside you. Let's say if this is an applied route within the course. So if people know they're going to be applying and being a practitioner, I think there's a pathway there. If it's research, then it might be a slightly different pathway, right? I think the two might fork out.
Mm.
Obviously, as we know, there's strong overlap between the two now, right? You can be a really strong applied researcher and practitioner as well. I think the other thing that I feel quite strongly about as well, Steve, maybe this is on the course, maybe it's just a module. I think that the industry's really spread when it comes to nutrition in terms of career outcomes at the moment, right? And I think across all of the performance sciences. So, for example, you might be working in-house at a rugby team, a football team. You might be working in a UK Sports Institute. You know, you might be working as a researcher. But if you're not doing that, there's a lot of people here that are looking to build a business. And a lot of people, a lot of the practitioners that I speak to, and I remember from my early experiences, how do you go about doing that? You know, that thing where someone gave me a really good bit of advice early on that when you're in a sport and someone's paying for your block of time, your year's service, you're working with an athlete, you're pretty carefree because they know that you're there to deliver the best service to the athlete. And this is great. It's a really different thing when you've got someone on the other side of the table and they're coming to pay an amount to see you. The relationship changes. It could be £1, it could be more. But as soon as the money's changing hands, what you have to deliver to them is value. And how do you go about doing that? How do you demonstrate the value? How are you really clear up front about the deliverables? And I think in terms of small businesses within the UK, this goes across the entire sector, right? I think there needs to be more support for young entrepreneurs coming through and building businesses. But I think definitely this could be touched on more, that if you're building the future, what does it look like in 10 years? Do you want to be in-house? You know, one of the downsides is if you're working within the team, you might be doing lots of traveling. Now, this might be great in the early years, but when you're settling down, having a partner or family, it might not fit as well. So I think some of these, almost these outcomes with these roles, and then some support on how to do these, definitely on the business side and how to develop a small business.